Hey guys, today I will be talking about the 2020 House races between the Democrats and the Republicans. Currently, the Democrats do have a majority in the Senate after the 2018 midterms, where for the first time in almost a decade, they were able to flip the House into their favor. They won 235 seats to the Republicans with just 200. And look at this map here. This is the current 2020 House map. Basically, as you can see, the Democrats control most of the West Coast, New Mexico, and then a lot of the more urbanized areas in each of these states. As you can see, the Denver area in Colorado and the Salt Lake City area in Utah. And then looking at the South, basically they're just blobs of basically Democratic areas, Florida, the Miami, Tampa Bay, basically a lot of the more populated areas are all blue districts, and then the southern tip of Texas is blue, as well as all of the northeast basically is all Democratic. Most of Maryland as well as the DC area is all blue, and some districts in the states of Virginia and North Carolina, as well as some parts of the Midwest, especially that Chicago area. Look at that big mess that is right there. These are all Democratic districts, while the Republicans control more of the suburban areas and the less populated areas in the country, so they basically control all of the one district states. And then looking at the JHK forecast here, they currently give the Democrats a 98.5% chance of retaining the majority in the House, compared to the Republicans with only a 1.5% chance of flipping it into their favor. So honestly, these elections, they're going to be boring. Nothing much is going to happen, in my opinion. These House races, the 2020 House elections, are not going to be too exciting. Nothing is really going to change. The Democrats are going to win 234 seats to the Republicans with 200.7. Basically, what they project is the Democrats might lose one seat and the Republicans might win one seat. So honestly, that's barely a change from 235 to 200. So honestly, these races aren't going to be too exciting. However, they are going to decide whether Trump or Biden are going to be able to get their legislature passed through the House. And then looking at this map here, basically most of the incumbents are going to win their races. Most of them are going to be 100 to 0% chances of either party winning, or just very high percentages, although there are some closer races, all the races with the black outlines around them. However, most of the incumbents I expect are going to win their respective races. And then this is basically their percentage chart added in a different form. Basically, they give the Democrats a 98.5% chance. So basically, all of these account to 98.5% of the possible scenarios. And then these are the other 1.5%. These are all of the Republican winning scenarios. And then looking over here, the most possible scenario, the scenario with the highest chance of actually occurring is this one right here, with the Democrats actually gaining 3 seats and the Republicans losing 3 seats, pushing the Democrats up to 238 seats in the House of Representatives. And then basically this is the current, and then just a lot more other different scenarios, of course, with the most lopsided Democratic victory having only a 0% chance of occurring 250. It's not going to happen. I think it's going to basically stay the same. I think that even 238 is a bit of a stretch. Honestly, I think it's going to be around 234 or 235 for the Democrats in 2020. And then this plots out all the competitive races. Basically, the more competitive they are, the closer they are to the center, and then the closer they are here. This is basically all the states in which the Democrats have almost a 100% chance of winning. Same thing for the Republicans on the right side here. So there's really only a handful of really toss-up states, and so that's definitely a good sign for the Democrats, considering that they barely have to win any of these toss-up races. And we'll take a closer look at which races they actually have to win in just a couple of moments. But the closest races right now seem to be the Georgia 7th District and the 7th District of Minnesota. And this basically plots out how the races changed. Basically, Democrats have increased from their margin in the beginning of March. Basically, this is their percentage for victory right there. Of course, they have been going up. The average amount of seats that they're going to win has also been going up, 234. They started off with 232. And the popular vote margin here, basically the lower it is, the better it is for the Democrats. Currently have a 7.7% margin of victory expected by the JHK forecast, and they started off with at around 6.4% margin over the Republicans at the beginning of March, at the beginning of this election cycle. And then basically this just plots out all of the different races from each of these states. And if you want to check this out for yourself, just search up JHK forecast for the 2020 House elections. You'll get to see this, and you can check out all of this for your own. I think it really does a very good job at explaining the current state of the 2020 House races at the moment. And then looking at the Cook political report here, basically they sum up their races with either likely, lean, or toss-up, as well as the solid states. So basically they currently give the Democrats 190 solid seats. These are seats that the Democrats couldn't control, that they do not think are the Democrats are going to lose, and then 155 Republican seats that they think Republicans are almost definitely going to hold on to. And then these likely lean seats, as well as the toss-up seats, these are all the competitive seats. And looking at this, basically right here, the Democrats don't have to win any toss-up seats, and they can still maintain the majority in the House. So that is just how good of a situation the Democrats are currently in. Of course, there are 4 open Republican districts that are expected to go to the Democrats, while there are no Democratic districts that are expected to go to the Republicans. So another good sign for the Democratic Party, and another bad sign for the GOP, as they are not expected to flip the House at all. And then basically there are more, of course, Democratic toss-up seats than Republican toss-up seats. But honestly, I think that most incumbents are going to win their races. But I think definitely that the Republicans do have some chances for pickups in some of these closer districts. But I think the map is almost certainly going to stay the same. And then looking at the history here, I want to take a look at the history of the House races. Basically, Democrats, of course, in 2018 won 235 seats, Republicans won 199, and that one special election in the 9th District of North Carolina right here pushed the Republicans up to 200 when they won this district in the special election in 2019. And then looking at this chart here, basically the Republicans were able to flip the Senate in 2020. Basically, this is the Democratic number of seats column right here. The Republican number of seats is down here. The Democratic gain or loss is here, and the Republican gain or loss is here. So basically, the Democrats won 235 to 200 in 2018. Before this, since 2010, they were never able to control the House after Barack Obama's victory, and basically a landslide in the House, winning 257 seats for the Democratic Party in 2008. In 2006, they flipped it for the first time in a decade. The last time they held it before 2006 was 1992 during Bill Clinton's victory era right there. And so basically what I think that we can see from this is basically the party of the sitting president basically never does well in the House. Honestly, after they win the election, if they win the election, I think the House is in favor of them. But after that, it really depends. It's really a referendum on how the president is doing. I think that if the president is up in his approval rating, he will win the House races. Their party will win the House races. And if he's underwater in his, of course, his approval rating, like Trump is right now, and like he was in 2018, they're going to lose. And then 2016, of course, was basically a red wave year, 241 seats for the Republicans in 2016. And 2008 was, of course, a very strong tidal wave year for the Democrats, winning 257 seats. But in 2020, this was probably one of their best election years. They have basically never gained 41 seats or even 40 seats since 1974. This was when this was after 1972, which was when Jimmy Carter was elected, I am pretty sure. Yes, this was before Jimmy Carter. This was Richard Nixon, I believe. And then 2018, this was, of course, right now, but I might have gotten that wrong up there. But in 2018, they were able to gain 41 seats, which is very, very good. And the Republicans, of course, lost 42. So a very good sign for the Democrats coming into the 2020 races. But I think that in 2020, there's really going to be very minor changes on this map. Look at this chart. As you can see, historically, the Democrats did dominate the House. However, in 1994 and on, the Republicans were able to have a stronger challenge here every single time, and the Democrats were able to flip it for the first time in a decade, as you can see here. But in 2020, they are expected to hold on to the majority. And then looking at the 2020 generic congressional vote, basically what this is instead of voting for any candidates, basically on the polls, they just show you the Democrats or the Republicans, who would you vote for, and basically the Democrats have been leading this entire election cycle. They're up 6.8% on average in the generic congressional vote, and as you can see, they're doing very well right now with 48.4% to the Republicans with 41.6%. And after looking at all of this, my prediction for the 2020 House races is honestly that the Democrats will win 235 seats to the Republicans with 200. I think that honestly there's a chance that the Democrats will lose or gain one seat. Maybe it'll be 234 or 236, but I think it's not going to be too far from 235. I think it's going to stay at 235, honestly, in my opinion. But of course, all of these races can change quite a bit before election night, and I'll be making more detailed predictions after this as the races as election day gets closer. And so yeah, that is it for this video. If you enjoyed it, please consider leaving a like on this video, as well as that if you can subscribe to my channel, I really appreciate it. We are very close to hitting 900 subscribers, and I just really want to thank you guys for all of the support. Leave your thoughts in the comments below, as well as any video suggestions you'd like to see from me in the future, and I will see you in the next video.